Good morning. My name is Amar Koparan, and I am a current senior graduating 2022 with a degree in psychology. I am a student ambassador for Future Alumni Networking, also known as FANS. I have a passion for being a chef, and I want to go into culinary school after I graduate this spring. I'm looking forward to the session, My Identity and My Career with Hannah O'Brien. This is an important session to tune in because it's vital to stay true to your identity throughout your career. So I'm also excited for this program as well. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Tonight's workshop is going to be recorded and you will be able to view it on the Imagine 2022 website shortly. You are welcome to use the chat feature throughout tonight's event. If you have any questions, we will be doing a short Q&A after the presentation where you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask our presenters your questions. If you haven't already, please fill out the Imagine 2022 interest form and check out the events on the Imagine 2022 website so you don't miss out on any of the amazing sessions this month. The links will be shared in the chat. And without further delay, I'm excited to introduce to you tonight's speaker, Craig Wiseman. Graduated from SUNY Oswego in 2003, he began working with MSNBC in August of 2015 as a booker and most recently has been promoted to a senior producer. Before that, Craig spent about 2 years in Al Jazeera America, a cable network he helped to launch. He has also worked as a booker for Fox and Friends on Fox News and a production assistant at the Fox NY local morning show called Good Day of New York. Here to present Craig Wiseman.
Thank you for the introduction, Amaya, and thanks so much for everyone that's logged on and kind of joined me today. And first thing I want to say, and I told Carisha earlier, apologies if the Imagine 22 is backwards. I usually use Microsoft Teams, so Zoom is a little different bit of a beast for me. So apologies early for that. But so as Amaya said, my first job in TV came at Good Day New York. So it's a local morning show in New York City. I'm from Queens. I'm from downstate. So I was the anomaly on campus. Most of the kids lived in Syracuse and everything else. And it was very different. But so when I graduated, I didn't have a friend, didn't have a contact, didn't know anybody. I had interned in radio stations when I was in school. The Career Services Center was actually really cool. They had a contact in one of their binders at a radio station in New York City that doesn't even exist anymore, which is sad. It was called WPLJ 95.5. And I interned there. I interned at Z100 in the city also. It's a New York City station. And then decided to move to TV. Got involved in TOP. My buddy was a GM, so he let me hang out there for 15 weeks, and we kind of did everything from teleprompter to writing to shooting to filming, everything. And when I finally got my job at Channel 5, again, I was applying everywhere and got nothing. I didn't have a contact. An old professor of mine told me, you've got to stand out, because when I was an intern, I realized how many other kids from bigger schools want to do what I do. You know, I interned with kids that went to Villanova and Duke and UPenn and schools I couldn't even imagine going to. And I'm this kid going to SUNY Oswego that half people say Gesundheit when you tell them where you go to school. And so to stand out, I found out who the executive producer was at Good Day New York, which wasn't easy because I hadn't really learned how to research anything yet. So I found out who he was, and I sent him a pizza. On the inside of the pizza box, I taped my resume. You know what? If it didn't get me anywhere, I'm out nothing. It cost me what, $10, $11 to send a pizza, and I had to beg the security guard to let him pass it up there because after 9/11, security in buildings, especially TV stations, got really, really super crazy. So I convinced the guy without giving him like a $10 bill like an usher at a movie theater. And I left. I went all the way to the Upper East Side where Channel 5 is on 67th Street. And I left. He called me before I got on the train, called me back to Queens. And he said, this has got to be the ballsiest we've ever had an interview get set up. And I said, wow, I have an interview. I was totally taken back. I said, this guy's calling me. And I came in the next day. I mean, if I wasn't halfway back to Queens, I probably would have had the interview then. I would have gotten off the train and gotten back into the city. So the interview went well. And again, I didn't know anything. I was an open book, and it's so important to do anything in television. I don't just mean live news and morning shows and but documentaries, anything. When you're starting out, you literally can't say no for God years. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. When they ask you to do something, can you do this? Can you work at 2 a.m? Yes. Can you work at 6 a.m? Sure. Can you do these 5 things that there's no time for? And you have to say yes to everything, because we have to be the when you're starting out I started as a trainee, which is like a paid intern. So I made $6 an hour, and that was minimum wage. I think at the time was $6.15 or $6.20. So when I started out, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. My dad thought it was insane. Because don't forget, Good Day New York, if you guys live in the New York City area, it's a morning show. So we were on the air from 5 to 9 a.m., 5 days a week. So if you watch morning shows now, the Today Show, Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, whatever you're watching, all the morning show personalities, Regis Philbin woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning for 30 years. Matt Lauer and Savannah Guthrie and George Stephanopoulos, they all get up at the ass crack of dawn, pardon my language. And people forget that. And you don't realize it, because when you watch them at 7 o'clock in the morning, they've been in the building for 6 hours, reading in the news, getting ready, getting their makeup, getting all together. It's an entire operation, which really opened my eyes to how this business really works. But so my day would be, my first shift was 5 a.m. to, 4 a.m. to noon. I worked 4 a.m. to noon. And I started over the summer, and it was a little hard because you cross by, you see your past kind of down the block. Our station was surrounded by a lot of bars, a lot of kids at 4 o'clock in the morning. They were still out and drinking. And, I've got to, I'm dressed like this. I don't look like I'm out going to a bar. So it kind of reminds you of what you're working towards. But I was a gopher for 6 months. I like using the parallel. It wasn't as extreme, but if you've seen Devil Wears Prada, I literally did everything. I walked dogs for my executive producer. I picked up the dry cleaning for my anchors. I picked up their kids from school, and I even babysat them. I was 23. And I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that I couldn't break them. I didn't know what I was doing. I brought the kids back to my parents' house. I still lived at home, and I had to put them somewhere. So there was really nothing I said no to. And eventually they stopped calling you, hey, you, and they learned, hey, isn't his name Craig? And you don't think that's going to happen, and it's frustrating, and you get paid nothing. This is not a business where you get out of college making $100,000. You have to know that coming up front. And that's also what freaked my parents out. So I get out of college, I have a degree, and it's great. And I was the first person in my family with a 4-year degree, and I'm the youngest of 3 children. And very proud of that. And I sought out Oswego when I wanted to go to journalism. I could have gone to 4 or 5 other schools, and I chose this place. And I'm really proud that I went here. But so Good Day New York led me to Fox and Friends, oddly enough. So I wanted to grow, wanted to do more, and a lot of shows, a lot of structures don't really give you opportunities to grow. At no fault of their own. People just don't leave, so there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere, you have that glass ceiling over your head. So I had some friends that I made at Channel 5 who knew people at Fox News, which is in a completely different building in the city. It's on 6th Avenue. And interviewed there, and that worked. And I was a booker in 2008. So this is when Barack Obama was running for president. And it gave me my first taste of national politics, because at Good Day New York, I was producing segments and shows. I was doing celebrity segments and Who Worked Better and all the lighter side of news. I was out in the field with the cute little reporter dancing with the Rockettes and on a tightrope at the circus with the clowns. And it was a lot of fun, but I was itching to do stuff that mattered. There was really more. And Fox and Friends gave me that first taste of it. I mean, I'm lucky. I was on the ground in Denver when Obama accepted his nomination, when he won. I was there at a speech for the Democratic committee. I was in St. Paul for the Republican committee. I've never heard a room as loud as when Sarah Palin was speaking. I swear to God, the floor was shaking, and it's probably the last thing she did right. And so it was really kind of, I mean, politics aside, it gave me a chance to learn what lobbying was and what political surrogates were. And I really kind of fell into it. I'm like, well, this is really interesting, because everyone on TV is selling something. You're selling a magazine, you're selling a movie, you're selling a piece of legislation if you're a congressman. So everyone's selling something. They want to be on TV for a reason. And I got into that. And Democrats and Republicans and independents and all that together. And also Fox and Friends is a much bigger operation than any local station is, just because they reach so many people more. And so When Fox and Friends ended, I ended up taking a little bit of a break, and I got involved at a small station called RNN up in Westchester, just to get back into the politics game. And it was a political current events show that I was booking for. And I was primarily, by the way, a booker up until about a couple years ago. A booker is the guy who gets the guests for the anchors to talk to. So you political analysts, celebrities, Jack Hanna with his cute little baby animals. I'm the guy who gets them to talk to the anchor. I find them, I call them up, I get them set up, and I walk them to the building, and they take it from there and they make TV. What amazed me was the segments I was booking for and producing. They're only on the air for about 5 minutes. A 5-minute segment takes about 15 hours to produce. It takes a lot of time, and that really kind of shocked me. But there's a lot that goes into it, and usually you kind of do everything from soup to nuts. So it's a one-man band a lot of times. But so when I got to RNN, I moved on from RNN. I got wind that a new network was launching, and I looked at my resume. I'm like, there's a few things I haven't done. I've worked at very established networks that aren't going anywhere. I've never launched a network because there's not really opportunity to do that anywhere anymore because everything's usually out there. So Current TV, which was a network owned by Al Gore at the time, wasn't really making much of a stink. Al sold it and at a loss, I think, and he sold it to Al Jazeera. If you guys haven't heard of it, Al Jazeera English is the largest news network in the world. I know it's hard to say that because in this country, it doesn't exactly have the best reputation. So I interviewed them. I allowed them to pitch me, which I've never done in my interviews ever, because I needed them to sell me on what their vision was, because we didn't really have one. They said in-depth journalism, straight down the middle, no politics, no celebrities, no garbage, no mess, no noise. They were saying the right things. So I said, all right, I'll take this ride. I'll launch the network. And we did it. And it was an uphill battle just because there's a million networks out there giving news to people. Even if people hadn't heard of us, they knew who we were. And we were doing such awesome work that I was proud of. And unfortunately, the cable network landscape was so saturated that we couldn't break through meaningfully. We turned some heads, and we definitely changed some minds. So in that instance, it was a success. But it was just a bridge too far. It was too much. And so I left Al Jazeera before, unfortunately, the announcement of the end of the network, about 7-8 months. It's just the way it worked out. I had a friend of mine at Al Jazeera. I was coordinating all of the production of our State of the Union coverage for 2013 and 2014, I'm sorry, and the midterm elections. So people I didn't know before, and Al Jazeera was a great place because it was like the all-star team of producing. Names I've heard of and seen in papers for a decade were not my colleagues, were my bosses. The people that ran CNN International was suddenly 2 desks away from me. The guys who ran CBS for 25 years was asking me for advice. So, I mean, it was just really, really cool. And I still have a lot of great relationships there. And so when I left to go to MSNBC. So a producer who had worked at MSNBC before said, listen, I have a friend of mine on a weekend show who needs a booker. They can't fill the job to save their lives. I know it's a weekend job. Go for it and try it. It was Up with Steve Kornacki. And it's funny. I told him in the interview, it wasn't my first interaction with him, even though he didn't remember me. Steve was my very first booking at Good Day New York when he was at the Observer. And he wore the same damn clothing. I swear he's got a closet full of those khakis and the shirts. I swear he should really buy Stock and Gap. But he remembered me vaguely, but I nudged him a little bit. And so he left the show. The show was in a transition, which I had no idea about. So the show fell apart and changed because they elevated Steve to a big position, which he does now on like election nights when you see him with a big board and doing his crazy evil genius stuff with politics and counties and everything. And that's one thing I learned very quickly. Shows get canceled all the time. Shows get canceled. They get launched. Networks fall apart. The first time it fell apart, the first time I lost my job, I freaked out. My life is over. Oh my God. My first DP called me back, who I'm not friends with, and said, if you wanted a stable job, become a teacher. Go work at a bank. This job is not 9 to 5. Things jump around all the time. The only thing you can count on is change. You can't let it bother you. You can't let it get to you. You just got to roll with it. You know, I've seen shows get canceled and entire teams get fired. I've seen shows get canceled and entire teams get broken up and put on other teams. I've been with MSNBC now for about 6.5 years, and I've worked on 7 shows. Shows get canceled, they get launched. I was able to get off weekends. I actually rejoined Steve on his weekday show at 4 o'clock for about 3 months, and then he left me again. And I swear to God, he runs away from me like he owes me money. But we're still really good friends. And we always still if you guys know him at all, he's a giant college football fan, and he loves sports. And so we've always been able to talk sports with each other. And so he left, and I didn't know this at the time, but they were bringing Nicole Wallace into Launch Deadline White House. And at that point in my career, I was kind of looking for a new challenge beyond booking. But I know who Nicole is, and I know where she's worked. And I said to myself, I said, all right, I'll take this ride. Let's see where this goes, because she's a star. Not many anchors are stars, and she is. And it was the best 2.5 years of my entire career. She is so... she hates being famous, and she can't stand it, and she is just one of the guys, and she doesn't care. And the people that she knows, my God. I mean, so I've worked with some anchors with big egos, a lot of anchors with big egos that know all the people they want to put on their television show, but they can't call them because that's my job. Why do I need you? I have Craig. Craig will do it. I don't need to call people. So Nicole talks to these people. Like, she's best friends with Rod Rosenstein, the former deputy attorney general. She's friends with Chris Christie. They're like brother and sister. I mean, the people that, and she texts him, she calls him. She got me, James Comey and Andrew McCabe know my first name because of her. And this is right around the time that McCabe was, getting targeted by former President Trump, and all the news headlines are going back and forth. And he called me, he goes, listen, do you have 5 minutes? I need to talk to you. So she opened up a ton of doors, and we still keep in touch. Like I said, like, she's like my big sister. And I have a 17-month-old at home, little boy, and we go back and forth switching pictures with each other, because her son now is, I think he's probably 7 or 8. So he tells me what her son's doing. I tell him, oh, Nicole's like, oh, my son just started soccer. Oh, my son just spit up on me. It's great. So I limited deadline White House. And then the itch came back to do more. So I had built up a lot of really good solidarity with executive producers, senior executive producers. They were looking to extend coverage on weekends beyond, because we used to be on tape after 5 o'clock. And CNN, that's what former President Trump did. He forced cable networks to care about weekends, because until then, it really didn't after a certain time of day. Now, all 3 major networks are on until 10 p.m. live, Saturday and Sunday nights. And so they were developing new programming that they just never had before. So again, here comes new shows. They hired 100 people at the same time, which doesn't happen at a network like NBC. They needed producers, they needed graphics people, they needed tape producers, they needed anchor, everything from top to bottom. They needed to hire new talent. They didn't have anchors to do these shows. And my first, so they gave me a chance. I learned to train as a senior producer, which is entry-level management. So I run the team. I'm pretty much the lieutenant for my executive producer. He sees the entire vision from a 300-foot view. I take care of everything on the ground for him. Team management, rundown management, looking at scripts, making sure inconsistencies, making sure everything's spelled right, which is very easy to miss. So I trained for about a year while I was working for Nicole Wallace. And so my first job was with Alicia Menendez. So for those who don't know her, she's the daughter of Senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez. And but I've also been working with her for a while, and I consider her a friend. Then my son was born in August of 2020. I was then shifted on election night of all nights to a couple of shows. The Week with Joshua Johnson, which unfortunately is no longer on the air, but he's still with us. He's on NBC News now and he's killing everything, which is great. But right now I work on 2 shows, Ayman, hosted by Maimon Mohideen, and the Mehdi Hassan Show. So I take care of the Saturday and Sunday night 8 to 10 block. So if you're watching MSNBC Saturday and Sunday nights, which I hope you are, if you're not, I understand, because it's not the prime time viewing. Between 8 and 10, that's my realm. That's where I live. And I kind of bring it back to here. I know I have 45 minutes for a presentation, but I'd almost rather hear from you guys. You guys tell me, you have any questions? I'm an open book.
So I think my first question, I'll start off because first of all these names that you're rattling off, I need to understand how are you able to stay so humble, especially working in this business? I have a few friends myself who work with all these great stars and everything. I'm not gonna lie, their heads got kind of big, and I also have heard of situations where that also has hurt them in getting other connections and other people. So I just want to know, how do you keep yourself humble and how do you keep yourself at such a great level? Because you're such a cool guy, Craig. Love working with you. So
Oh, don't call me cool. Don't do that. That's when my head starts expanding. No, but no, it's just who I am. I mean, so up until, like I said, up until about 2 years ago when I was a booker, and I was a booker for 15 years, that job is entirely people management and being on the phone and knowing how to talk to people and being good with people. I've always just been good with people in general. So I kind of fell into booking and I realized I was really good at it. And all booking is, by the way, it's a verbal agreement that I will show up on set in your studio. And sometimes you send them a car, but like, I'll be there when I say we're going to be there. Okay, great. No money's exchanged. No contracts are signed. It's a verbal agreement because they're getting on TV for free to sell whatever they're selling. So sure, I'll be there. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'll be there at 3 a.m. Absolutely. And, but, and like I said, I've worked at big egos and people that are very impressed with themselves, and you just, it's part of the game. I mean, but I've learned a long time ago, and NBC actually has this in their training manual, which is great. Act like a New Yorker. Act like it doesn't matter. It's just a job. I mean, it's not just a job. I love this. And I've had opportunities to do other things. I've had opportunities to work in politics and in DC for different senators and congressmen. And I almost moved to Washington a while back. I almost moved to Georgia. CNN offered me an amazing job that I just couldn't get myself around to do. And look, it's amazing to be wanted and treated like an asset. But I focus on the work. I love doing this. I love being I look at producers that do what I do as a first responder for information. When there's a tragedy, God help us. When the Parkland shooting happened, I was in the control room live, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Because it was in the morning, right after Morning Joe was off the air, and we didn't know. I was filling in for a friend of mine who was out sick. They're like, "Hey, Craig, can you produce for us?" I said, "Sure." So I jumped in. We didn't know what was going on. We knew there was a situation at a school in Florida. That's all we knew. We didn't really know the scope of it till later in the afternoon, really how bad it had been, because it was still happening. And it was still a crime scene. And so I was in the control room when Nancy Pelosi announced the impeachment proceedings against Trump. I mean, there's been historic things that I've seen and been involved with. That's the things I take with me. That's the things that I think are special. Being on the ground when Obama accepted the nomination, being invited to the White House for the Christmas party because I worked at MSNBC. All of these really cool things that I'll always take with me. I mean, yeah, celebrities are fun and yeah, hi, how you doing? Thanks for coming. Okay, you sit over here, here's your microphone. And some of them are nicer than others. So they're people just like you and me. Sometimes they're just in a bad mood and you can't make them happy. It's just the way it works. I mean, my favorite ever, and this is just, it's taught me to bite my tongue and know that's a business. A Good Day New York, we were looking for a new anchor when one of our anchors had left the show. And Wendy Williams had filled in a bunch because her show just launched. Her talk show just launched. So she was filling it a lot. And she is balls of energy wrapped in a body. And even at 6 a.m, and she is tall. She wears heels, and she has got to be 6'2" barefoot, that girl. And she's a lot of fun, and she's nice, and she's always in the best mood. So we had Justin Long on because he was doing the last Die Hard movie he did with Bruce Willis. That's how long ago it was. And so he was there with his Fox publicist and off to the side. And Justin says it's loud enough. I don't know if he meant her to hear it. And he goes, "Wow, you guys got RuPaul to host your show? God, how did you get him?" I'm like, and then my boss was like, "Boy, you better run." I'm like, so I mean, maybe he was making a joke. Maybe he was serious. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know who Wendy Williams is. It's possible. But just the things that I've seen. I mean, my friend said, like, when I retire, I've got a hell of a book to write. I got to change everyone's names though. But but no, it's easy to stay humble because I focus on the work. And NBC, Fox, when I worked at Fox all those years, Fox is a building with a newsroom in it and studios. It really is. NBC is a living, breathing thing. And it's only across the street from Fox News Channel. It's not far. But like when you're walking through the building, I mean, not now because COVID has changed everything, but Jesus, from one day to the next, you're seeing celebrities everywhere in the elevators, in the hallways, in the bathroom. I mean, and I'm talking A-level everything. I'm walking around, all of a sudden, Tom Hanks asks me for it. He goes, "I'm a little short now. Give cab fare." He gave a 10. He wasn't doing a bit. He was serious. SNL's 40th anniversary, which was right around the time I started, and Martin Short and Steve Martin are fighting with each other and doing a whole shtick and bit in the lobby, and I mean, it's the level of celebrities. And my family, they're giant wrestling fans, and I'm taking the elevator up to the second floor to work, and John Cena gets in the elevator with me in his wrestling gear. He was there to do the Today Show, so he's in the building, and he's there. I guess he was a champion at the time, so he had this like giant belt around his waist, and so I'm looking around. He's got his jorts on, and I'm like, oh hi. I'm like, you're allowed to talk to them. You just can't like fanboy it out. Oh my god, I need an autograph. We're told specifically not to do that, no matter who's there, because it's a business, and you have to treat yourself professionally. And we've had interns get fired over it, unfortunately, for different things. Even recently, we had Cal Penn on the show. He's on a book tour, and he is the most humble guy I've ever met in my life, and he's very cool. He's selling his book, very funny guy. And I was a fan of his from Designated Survivor, so I was a little starstruck, a little bit. And we had an intern who wouldn't stop taking pictures with him in the background and putting them on Instagram. And we told her consistently, listen, you can't do this. This isn't right. Trust me, if you take pictures, but keep them on your phone. This isn't for the world to see. The world knows he was on the show. They just watched him. They were here, and they know what's going on. So it's very important to separate the professional from the celebrity, because at NBC, like I said, they were everywhere. There was no way to avoid them. I mean, my wife is addicted to anything Real Housewives, anything, and they're just in the building because they do a lot of local stuff for local Channel 4, who's also in the building. So I see them in the elevator. I'm like, hey, just guess what I saw? So-and-so. And Bethany Frankel I interviewed when she was doing her outreach for Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. So we had a news angle to it. So we had her on with Nicole Wallace, and great interview. Thanks for coming. Talk to you later. Blah, blah, blah. And the minute she leaves the building, it's TMZ's waiting outside. They're like, oh my God, Bethany, what are you doing here? And it's just, I won't say I've gotten used to it because I still get starstruck sometimes, but it's definitely just, I focus on the work that I'm doing. It really kind of keeps me grounded.
Thank you, Craig.
You know what? There are some questions I think in the chat. Hang on one second. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Maya,
yes.
How have you found and kept your true identity while you have continuously said yes to so many assignments you're forced upon you? You have to. You just have to. TV is live news is doing more with less, and it's a dangerous slope because once they realize you can do more with less, that's what they give you. Like, oh, you can do this. Great. Okay, fine. You can do this and kill yourself. Great. So you don't need 5 extra people to help you. And that's what happens. But you also learn what you're capable of when you're pushed. And you don't get comfortable, and you learn how to see things from different angles. I mean, it's amazing what hits you when it's 2 a.m. and you've been working all day and you can't see straight. And when Nelson Mandela died, I was working at Al Jazeera, and I had the unique experience to work outside of the country. I didn't leave the country, but I was working with guests all over the world. So MSNBC, Fox, CNN, they 90% of the time they're dealing with guests in the 50 states, maybe Canada. I was booking guests in London, Johannesburg, in Kiev, in Ukraine. I was booking guests in 15 countries. And it's a lot to keep track of when you think of the time zones and the international rules that kind of go with that. The more you can handle, whether it be unreasonable or not, the more people will notice. And that's another thing I noticed. You bust your ass and you work like a horse, someone's going to see you. You don't think they're watching, but they're watching. I've gotten noticed by people I didn't even know who knew my name, and they're like, "Hey, Craig, you're doing great." I said, "You know me?" Like, it's because you just keep your head down and you work. It's like you got blinders on, and because if I spent all my time watching who was watching me, I wouldn't get, you wouldn't get anything done. But it just really it just helped, like, loving what I do, because like I said, I made no money in the beginning. I made no money for a while, and you really have to love this, because I've seen people leave TV when they see the salary and like, no, I'm gonna go back and get my MBA and be a financial analyst. I'm gonna be bored and I'm gonna hate it, but I'm gonna have money. And I've seen people that do that. So it's just if you love what you're doing, let's say Laura Kelly. Yeah. So with more and more fictional shows like The Morning Show, which I love, by the way. I love The Morning Show. It's the reason I got Apple Plus. Being produced by entertainment companies around news and media. Have you seen any impacts to your industry role when it comes to the public's opinion, trust, or view? Oh, sure. I mean, I can't really speak for entertainment, but news trust is everything. Everything. Without trust, we have nothing. you're caught lying on the air, you're caught making something up or expanding on a fact that doesn't exist, you're done. And I don't care if it's NBC or the smallest affiliate station in Tacoma, Washington, it doesn't matter. I mean, trust is what keeps you on the air. And when like entertainment companies that produce like the morning show, and I'm not sure which production company puts that together, they also have to be as accurate and true as possible. I know for a fact that when Aaron Sorkin was doing the newsroom for HBO, he had a lot of our political contributors as set up as consultants so he could get the show right. He sat in our control room a couple times in the call. He wasn't on television with us, but he was sitting, 3-4 seats over, so he was taking notes because he doesn't know about news, and he wanted to make sure it was as accurate as possible. And but yeah, to get everything as accurate and real as possible, that's important. And the impact of my role is it's made. I don't say it's made its mean more because it's always meant a lot. In the era of, and I hate to say this, but fake news and all the things that Donald Trump has created and made a brand of himself, it's put more pressure on us to get it right, and not just to be first and to report first. And all the stories that, even the story in the newsroom when Congressman Gabby Giffords was shot in the head at a campaign event, I know ACN got it right, and they were the ones that were correct. Everyone said she was dead, including NBC. Everyone said she died. And when Al Gore supposedly won the presidency in 2000, everybody said he won because they were fighting with each other to be first, and everybody was wrong. Even Fox said Al Gore won the presidency, and it's because that's what the numbers were saying, and it turned out not to be true. And so it's just very true to be right rather than be first, and that's true with entertainment too. I mean, entertainment, they break news. TMZ broke Bob Saget's death a few weeks ago, and I was actually on the air when it happened because I noticed it. We generally don't report on celebrities' deaths unless they're big names. Bob is a big name. So our first instinct was, I actually knew his publicist a little bit from when I worked at Fox. Craig McCall got a statement, got him to confirm that, yes, indeed, this is true. It's not a celebrity death hoax, because that could happen. You go on the air with somebody that's not dead, and that's a big problem, especially if they're alive. Sometimes they call into the show and say, I'm not dead. That actually happened with Bob Dylan. I'm not going to say which network. It wasn't ours. But somebody said Bob Dylan was dead. He called into the control room and said, huh? He's like, I'm very much alive. I'm very much alive. I have an album coming out in 3 months. But so that's that. So that's the answer. I hope that helps. Anybody else?
Yeah, Laura had said, thanks, Craig. I also love the morning show. Appreciate the response. Trust is so crucial, especially now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's another question from Stephanie. Thanks for sharing your career path, Craig. Were there any specific experiences at Oswego that helped you prepare for your career and set up for your success?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So when I got to Oswego, I actually never majored in broadcasting communications. I really should have, but I didn't know any better at the time. I joined as a journalism major and joined the Oswegonian, did the whole thing, became assistant arts and entertainment editor. And so I was at Tyler Hall covering all the openings in the galleries and then the shows they were putting on and all the speakers that were coming to campus, and realized that it really wasn't for me. Print journalism wasn't really where I wanted to go. So I started taking broadcasting classes and so I moved my journalism class major to a minor and started taking English creative writing classes, but going to a broadcasting concentration. So I learned how to news write with a professor I know is long retired, Bruce Frassinelli. So he taught me how to write scripts and how to write for news, what a rundown looks like. Because he had worked at, I think he worked at the NBC affiliate in Syracuse for like ever, 20, 30 years as a producer. So that definitely helped. Unfortunately, I didn't have 4 years to get TOP under my nails. I only had the last semester before I graduated. So I literally had 15 weeks to learn everything. I anchored, which was a big mistake, and I'm happy it's not online somewhere. Because I had to. My anchors wouldn't leave the dining hall. If that ever happened in real life, oh my God, the worlds would collide. They wouldn't leave Cooper. They had to eat dinner. I'm like, it doesn't matter if we're on the air at 5 o'clock. And so I anchored the show by myself, and it was obvious to me at least that I should be behind the camera. That's where my mind is anyway. So and three professors said if you never did that again, that'd be great. So I agreed. So I wasn't like offended. So that definitely helped. But everything I learned at TOP, I even had a radio show at NYO. I did that too. So I just got to learn also just different elements of broadcast production. I learned how to write and edit a package in Oswego. I mean, which is essential for any TV news. Anybody, not even news, documentaries. I mean, that's really what they are. They're 7, 8, 9 minute packages. They're just more in depth than something that I would have time to get into. Yeah, absolutely. The foundation for my school, I really believed I found myself. And I went into Oswego not really knowing what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to write for a paper or anything. I just kind of fell into different things, met different people. And the GM of TOP at the time, where the hell is he now? I think he's in Philadelphia at a different TV station. I mean, so it's hard to keep track of everybody but most of the people I worked with at TOP are in the business, either in New York or elsewhere. So yeah, absolutely. I really got I found my feet on campus. Absolutely.
Laura, sorry for the train, but Laura had also said, sorry to jump back, but as a follow-up to Maya's question and comment you made, previously I 100% agree with that new entry level employees should take on as many roles as they can to show what they are capable of and how hardworking they are willing to be. However, with the conversations on self-care, work-life balance, etc., constantly increasing, do you have any advice for those employees to manage boundaries while also showing how above and beyond they're willing to go?
It's hard. It's really hard. And most of my close friends, when we were all starting our careers, and a lot of people don't do it. A lot of my friends work in finance and big brokerage houses, and they came out of college making like $300,000, and I couldn't have even imagined that. And but they were working 100 hours a week, so I never saw them. And it's very hard to go above and beyond. It's very easy to go above and beyond. You don't want to give up your personal life. You don't want to give up your girlfriend or boyfriend at the time or your family. But it's also very important because if you truly want to do this, now's the time to figure out if you want to. Because I mean, like I said, a lot of people over the years, I had an intern at Good Day New York quit after one day. But you get in at 4:00 in the morning. I'm like, what are you, crazy? I'm like, it's a morning show. I'm like, yeah, we don't work till 7:00 at night. Like we're in bed at 7:00 at night. We're in bed at night before the sun goes down. You know, I used to go to bed at 7:30 at night, and I had to get blackout shades in my bedroom because the sun would keep me up. I'd never in my life needed those before, and they're everything to me. I get them in every place I ever live because I've now worked on 4 morning shows in my career so far. So I'm used to the grind. But look, you want to hold on to your personal life, and I had fun. I met people and everything, and but it depends. It's not depends on how hard you want to work, but it depends on the circumstances, on the job you're working on the requirements. If it's a morning show and you're working crazy hours, or if you're working in the afternoons and you're working at the sports department at Channel 7 in New York City. I mean, there's a million different options that you guys have to what you want to do with your careers, but I got to tell you honestly, and every intern I've ever hired, I actually hire interns on our show that I work with. I've hired about 5 interns. Our last intern went to SUNY Oswego, and I'm so proud of him. If you guys know Josh Holfuth, he is an amazing kid. He is now a page for NBC Universal, and he interned for 3 semesters from home, upstate New York. I think he lived near Rochester, and he interned for my show. I then introduced him to another show on weekends, and he stayed with them for almost a year. So he got a year and a half of experience. It was all remote. I still owe him a tour of 30 Rock. He keeps telling me because he's never seen the building, but he's a page now for the and a page program real quick is you work for 6 months. You're supposed to give studio tours to tourists. We don't do that right now because of COVID, but after 6 months, you get contracted to different areas within NBC. And I mean, anywhere, CNBC, MSNBC, The Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, any entity in our building, in our company, you're there for 2-3 months at a time, and then you meet and then you leave. You do this, you do that. You get a chance to see 3 or 4 different elements of what we do in different places. Channel 4 or Telemundo, all of the elements that we exist under. And NBC is such a giant umbrella. There's like an endless amount of places to check out. And I just see everyone is selling something. I'm selling NBC. So when you're done, you've met and impressed, hopefully, the right amount of people to where a job opens up and you start working here. And they already know you. You're not some normal kid with a resume that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, it's the best foot in the door I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't get into the page program when I started out of college. And it's an amazing step forward. And I know Al Roger put our school on the map. And I've worked with him a few times, and he is as nice as everyone says if you've never seen him and met him in person. because I know he goes up to campus once or twice a year. But yeah.
Thank you. Laura had stated, I agree, there are no easy answers in any industry, but appreciate your comments and advice. It's a give and take all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another question from Carisha. What are some suggestions you have for students to get connected in this industry? How can they stand out such a saturated and intimidating industry?
I mean, I've always said it's harder to get into this business than it is to stay in it. And my first thing was send a bus of pizza. It worked for me. But I mean, it just popped in my head. But how to get noticed? I mean, one tool that I never had when I was a student here, Oswego Connect, and it had just gotten launched, I think, before I graduated. So it really wasn't fully functional. But there are lists out there. There are career solutions, career services solutions on campus. Get to know these people while you're still here. Get to know them, learn what elements are. And look, like I said, I'm a reference. I'm not just some guy speaking here for an hour and okay, go on with your lives. Like, honestly, I'm as involved as students need me to be. I really mean that, because I was telling Carisha this morning before we started, if I had me when I was you, I'd kill for that. I didn't have that. We had alumni come back and talk to us, but it's hard to know what to ask people when you yourself don't know what you want to do yet. So there weren't a lot of opportunities to get my name out there to bother people and ask questions, and there also weren't a lot of people look like me. They were all much older. They were in their 50s and 60s, and I felt like I was talking to my grandfather, and it was a little weird. And just, I know I'm old compared to you guys. I just turned 41, but I'm still in the prime of my career, and I still very much want to help you guys. And anybody that wants to reach out, like, I'm very, very open, because it's important, because our school is a small one, and I know, like I said, I know friends of mine that went to bigger schools. Do you go to alumni events? No, I haven't been at my school since I graduated. No, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I haven't been back to Oswego in, Jesus, 5-6 years, and I miss it. I really miss it. I see all the changes that are going on, the buildings that are going up, and even taking a stroll down New Campus. Well, it was called New Campus at the time, but like down right Onondaga and Cayuga, that's where I lived for a while. So no, absolutely. So yeah.
Laura had also stated, you've mentioned COVID a couple times, but wondering if you can go a little deeper into how the pandemic has most impacted your industry or your specific role, and what positive changes from the pandemic have you seen that you will stick around to make the industry even better moving forward?
Wow, COVID changed the industry a million times, for the simple fact is we can't go into the building anymore. So when the world shut down in March of 2020, I had just one of our bookers had gotten sick the month before, and they sent me to New Hampshire in February for the first primary to cover for us. And then I come back 3 weeks later and everything shuts down. In the beginning, we didn't know what to do. Remote learning was always remote connection was always a thing, but nobody ever really did it, because we just go to work. Your desk is right there. So we didn't really know how we would do what we do. So I'm in my house last weekend. Perfect example. We're on the air, and Eamon and Mehdi have shows, and I have an iPad, which allows me to talk to everybody, from guests on the air to the anchor to my other colleagues, everything. A work phone, a personal phone, and the computer that I'm on allows me to go on live television from my bedroom every night. Every night I need to go on the air. I'm on the air live to a national audience from my house. We're used to it now, and it's kind of like whatever, but in the beginning it's like, wow, this is really cool. Like, this is, because the technology in a control room like ours and a building like ours is massive. So the fact that they're able to create it and compact it to the point where we could all do our jobs from home. CNN and Fox, I'm sure, have similar technologies, because it was necessary, because you can't just stop television because you can't go into the building. So so that's definitely changed my role in my business. What's helped because of it is, I've always said TV news is a communications business where people don't communicate well enough, and this job has forced us to communicate overly so. So if we're in our office normally before this all started, and there's about 10 or 12 of us working, and I'll shout across the newsroom, hey, John, hey, don't forget about that graphic. Make sure that's spelled right. Make sure that banner's right. Can't do that anymore. So it forces you to pick up a phone, do which apparently keys out on this thing. But I'm holding a phone. But it also, set up a Teams chat, call them up real quick, do a video call, or there's a system inside of a rundown manager that's like almost like instant messaging. So it forces you to make the extra step to get a hold of them and to make sure that what needs to happen actually happens. To make sure that producers know the angle of the segment, to make sure that they understand what the point we're trying to get across is. So, and in that respect, I really hope that the overcommunication stands once we're done with this, which I hope is soon, because this has been insane. It's really been insane. I go into the building, they call them designated heroes. There's a rotation of every show, and they go in every so often. So I go into the building every third or fourth weekend. So I'm going into 30 Rock, but you could see the tumbleweeds go. I mean, it's eerie how empty that building is now. I mean, you don't see anybody. You don't see audiences for SNL lining up on Saturday night. You don't see anybody in the hallways. Everyone that's ever been in our building, the lobby, the sound really carries at 30 Rock because at the very high ceilings, you can hear a pin drop. Because right now, if you don't work if you don't work for NBC, you can't come in. There's no guests. There's no tourists. Which the buzz of tourists, you could set your clock to it. It's like, oh, they're on the second floor. They must be learning about the Tonight Show. Just nothing. It's very somber. It's a shame.
Laura had stated our alumni family and their willingness to connect with students like you, Craig, is amazing. # Greater Pride.
I actually have one more question. I'm so sorry, I actually have one more question for you, Craig. So with all of this work that you do, you're super plugged in. As you can see, you have a phone, laptop, all that. How do you disconnect? How do you keep yourself, you personally?
That's a hard question, geez. That's what the real really is. Because when I was at Channel 5, it was very hard to disconnect because I was doing the lighter side of news and the fluff stuff and the fun stuff. When I got involved in news, it became very hard to disconnect. And not hard because, oh God, I'm trapped. It's just your mind keeps going. It's just very hard to stop. And even when I go on vacation, go on vacation with my wife when we first got married, I don't bring my work phone with me, but news always seems to follow me. I'm on the phone, I'm looking at things, and it's very hard to look. James Comey got fired by Trump. I was on my honeymoon, and my wife, we were on the other side of the world, and my wife turned on CNN International and didn't know who James Comey was. She's a lawyer. She didn't really know who he was. She goes, Craig, who's James Comey? I'm like, why? She goes, he just got fired. I'm like, oh shit. And because it's the director of the FBI, it's kind of a big deal. And so two things went through my mind at the time. I know what's going on at work to handle this story, and I'm very glad I'm nowhere near it. And then seriously, when Bin Laden got killed, I wasn't in a newsroom because I wasn't working at the time. I was in the middle of a couple things that I wasn't really plugged into. So I was very happy because I would have been in the newsroom for 28 hours. That would have been one of the longest days of my career. But I've been there for many, many giant stories that I've had fun with. But disconnecting is fun. It's just hard. I can go on vacation for a week and I won't relax till the fourth day. And in that, I'm talking about sitting on the beach. I'm not talking about hiking and doing all these fun vacation stuff. I'm just sitting on a beach looking at the sun, and my mind just keeps going because that's just kind of how I'm wired. It's a blessing and a curse.
Thank you, Craig, so much for this engaging and powerful presentation. I will make sure to remember the way that you got your interview from the resume and the pizza box is very innovative. And Oswego Connect and Career Services are extremely vital, and I definitely need to use those resources as I go into the next semester. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for participating today. We'd love for you to complete our post-session feedback survey via the Google form linked in the chat. Please note we are asking participants to complete this form every time they attend Imagine 2022 session. Each successful submission will count as one entry for the week's prizes. There are more events you can attend and submit the survey for, the more chances you have to win. Also, don't forget to check out this week's exciting programs. If you're interested, you can attend tonight's session, the Imagine 2022 day session with KPMG, starting at 5 p.m. We will put the Zoom link in the video chat. We've also added the link to Imagine website so you can check out all the other amazing programs happening for the next 3 weeks. Thank you so much, Craig.
It's my pleasure. And I know I'm involved with the ASK program on campus. And Carisha, if there's anybody that reaches out, whether it's anybody on the call right now or anybody, I'm an open book. Seriously, bother me. Because if I can help kind of steer you in a way you're not sure about, and I can ask a question that can really help, then that's what I'm here for. So don't feel like you're annoying me.
Yes.
It's really great to hear from you guys. And I'm here if you need me.